The 6 hostages released by Hamas this weekend are the last group of living hostages to be released as part of the first phase of the ceasefire deal with Israel.
Last Saturday, the 22nd of February, the 8th phase of the framework took place. 6 living civilians were released from captivity of Hamas terrorists to Israel. Omer Wenkert, Aliyah Cohen, Tal Shoham, Omer Shem Tov, they were reunited with their families after 505 days in captivity. Hisham El Sayed and Avira Mengistu were also released. They were too reunited with their families after a decade in captivity, 10 years in Hamas captivity.
Israel says the release of hundreds of Palestinian prisoners is delayed until the release of the next hostages has been assured and without the humiliating handover ceremonies in Gaza.
The government of Israel has made the decision that as a result of the repeated violations of the framework by Hamas, the release of convicted security prisoners from Israeli prisons has been delayed. Let me make this clear on behalf of the State of Israel. Israel will not overlook the inhumane, the degrading ceremonies that humiliate our hostages for propaganda.
Israel's special envoy on combating anti-Semitism, Michal Cotler-Wunish, join us from Israel for more on what happens next.
I don't understand why the world is so shocked. They've been held by depraved monsters for over 500 days who abducted them precisely for the reason of continuing the war that they waged on the state of Israel on October the 7th, then butchering, burning alive, murdering, and abducting, at the time, 251 human beings, stealing them from their beds, from their homes, and in fact, keeping them in terror tunnels and dungeons, as we've seen, in the dark, without access to food, without being able to walk around. But again, the surprise of the democratic world, of the free world, to the I would say the state, the shocking conditions in which these human beings have been held, that is actually what's most shocking. What were we expecting? What were we expecting these monsters, these demonic, anti-Semitic, genocidal monsters to treat these human beings like? And indeed, that is precisely what we're finding out more and more.
We also discussed what is next in terms of the ceasefire and the issue of moral equivalency between Israel and Hamas.
Equating it with a democratic country that it and other proxies alongside that Islamic Republic of Iran attacks. That false moral equivalence for over 500 days is what got us here to this moment. So I don't think of what we've reached with this demonic genocidal terror regime as a deal. Forgive me, but I think of it as extortion. They are literally holding a gun to the head of not just the state of Israel. If we think this is just about the Jews that they abducted or the state of Israel, that they actually are holding a gun to the head of in order to be able to continue what we call this agreement, we are remiss and completely misunderstanding the raging war of barbarism on civilization. That is what October the 7th was. Again and again, I will say, October the 7th was the Kristallnacht of our times. And we have failed colossally. When I say we, I mean the West. I mean democracies, to make very clear that there is no equivalence, moral or otherwise, between genocidal terror proxies and the Islamic Republic of Iran. And by the way, the regimes that enable, including Qatar, including Turkey, this genocidal terror regime, I'll say those horrendous, horrific release ceremonies, they're staged, they're produced by Al Jazeera, owned by Qatar, that democracies have cast as the honest broker in order to reach this, so to speak, deal, which I have called already extortion. The understanding that what happens next is constantly this whack-a-mole response instead of a complete shift, acknowledging that the paradigm collapsed on October the 7th. The paradigm that insinuated that Iran can be integrated into the region, the paradigm that insinuated that genocidal terror proxies of the Islamic regime in Iran could be placated, the paradigm that insinuated that if we just appease terror they'll play nice. Genocidal terror does not play nice. And what will happen next is very much this imperative of the state of Israel to return whoever we can, those that are alive, to their families, and those that are dead for proper burial in Israel. But we would be remiss if we thought that this is I'm going to say, an end to this raging war of barbarism on civilization. It is just one more battle, if you will, of that raging war. And they abducted them in order to be able to continue the war in this way.